6:45 a.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news read by Mario Vijayawardena. The headlines. The Mayor of Colombo confirms the receipt of 10,000 doses of Covishield vaccines to be administered to the residents of the Colombo municipality limit. The National Transport Medical Institute is set to commence its services. The number of buses and train journeys increased within provinces from today. The Department of Prison says inmates who engaged in protests damaging prison property will not be recommended for clemency. In international news, Australia's Sydney and Darwin begin COVID-19 lockdowns. In sports cricket, Indian skipper Mithali Raj epitomizes India's troubles with a painstaking run rate in the first ODI in Bristol. The Mayor of Colombo, Rosie Senanayake, says 10,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca Covishield vaccine have been handed over by the Director General of Health Services in order to administer the second dose to residents of Colombo. The Mayor said accordingly, senior citizens above the age of 70 will be provided the vaccine. The Mayor said around 200,000 doses have been administered to the public residing within the Colombo municipality limits, while 90,000 doses of the Sinopharm vaccine and its second dose have also been administered. She noted 109,000 doses of the Covishield vaccine have been administered thus far. The Mayor further stated senior citizens will be notified of the date, time and venue of vaccinations through an SMS, while citizens who do not have access to text messages will be informed by visit to their home. The National Transport Medical Institute is set to commence its services from today. The NTMI stated issuing a press release that services will only be available for those who have already made appointments through e-channeling. However, the release further read that the branches of Verahara, Polonnaruwa, Nuwara Eliya and Kalutara will not be in operation. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The number of buses and train journeys allowed within provinces will be increased from today. The State Minister of Bus Services, Dilum Amanugama, said permission has not been granted for interprovincial travel as instructed by the COVID-19 Prevention Task Force. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka Railways said they decided to increase train journeys in both the morning and evening. The Railways Deputy General Manager Gamini Seneviratna said they have planned to increase the number of trains commuting to 28, in turn increasing the total train journeys to 56. The Director General of Health Services has issued circular including new quarantine regulations for persons travelling to Sri Lanka from overseas. Accordingly, it is mandatory that Sri Lankan citizens produce a negative PCR test 96 hours prior to arriving in the island or a rapid antigen test taken 48 hours before arrival. Foreigners and dual citizens must produce a negative PCR test result taken 96 hours prior to landing in the country. The card holding information pertaining to COVID-19 vaccinations received by the individual should be produced only in the English language. Persons arriving from overseas will be required to undergo a PCR test on the first day of arrival, while they will be subject to a 14-day quarantine period at a hotel or quarantine centre. The new circular issued by the Director General of Health Services states fully vaccinated Sri Lankans or dual citizens travelling from overseas who have also completed the 14-day quarantine period should notify the health services on the matter. That's local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The Prisons Commissioner Administration Chandan Ekanayaka says the Department of Prisons decided that any inmate who engages in protests damaging prison property will not be recommended for pardons. Valikada prison inmates who are on death row staged a protest on the roof of the chapel ward last afternoon. They demanded a 4-year review of their death sentence and commutation of the sentence to 20 years in prison.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
And now in Watchlight, the Damula Economic Centre will be closed today. The Economic Centre will be closed as the employees at the centre will be given the second dose of the COVID vaccine. The Damula Economic Centre will be reopened on the 29th of June. That was Watchlight, and now in world news headlines. Australia's Sydney and Darwin begin COVID-19 lockdowns. Singapore's surprising new plan to live with COVID revealed. China releases videos of its Zhurong Mars rover. Sydney, Australia's largest city, has begun a 2-week lockdown as a cluster of cases of the highly infectious coronavirus Delta variant rose to 110. Restaurants, bars and cafes were shut today as stay-at-home orders were extended across Sydney. The restrictions require people to stay home for at least 14 days, only venturing out to buy essential goods, obtain medical care, exercise, go to school, or if they are unable to work from home. A country that has been one of the world's most successful at combating COVID-19 has announced it will soon fundamentally change how it manages a pandemic. The city-state of Singapore has stated COVID will be treated like other endemic diseases such as the flu. There will be no goals of zero transmission. Quarantine will be dumped for travellers and close contact of cases will not have to isolate. It also plans to no longer announce daily case numbers. Senior Singaporean ministers have said it is the new normal of living with COVID. China's space agency has released video of its Zhurong rover trundling across the surface of Mars. The pictures were acquired by a wireless camera that the robot had placed on the ground. The new media release also includes sequences from Zhurong's landing in May, showing the deployment of its parachute system and the moment of touchdown. The 6-wheeled robot is investigating a region known as Utopia Planitia. And now the main points of the world news segment once again. Australia, Sydney and Darwin begin COVID-19 lockdowns. Singapore's surprising new plan to live with COVID revealed. China releases videos of its Zhurong Mars rover. That was world news, and now in development news, the Hambantota International Port Group has partnered with Shenzhen Xinji Group to set up a plug-and-play park-in-park manufacturing facility within the port's industrial zone. The concept is a fully-fledged standalone industrial facility with some very unique features set to operate within the Hambantota International Port's industrial zone. The signing of the joint venture agreement between the Xinji Group and HIPG took place at the Hambantota Maritime Centre with key officials of both organisations in attendance. That was development news, and now in sports news. In cricket, India struggled to accelerate against dominant England in the first of the 3 ODI at Bristol in England. Meanwhile, in tennis, 4-time Olympic gold medalist Serena Williams has confirmed she will not play in this summer's delayed Tokyo Games. The 39-year-old American, who made her Games debut at Sydney in 2000, made the announcement in her pre-Wimbledon media conference earlier. That was sports news.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
Nestle announces that it has switched to paper straws for its popular ready-to-drink variant. This makes it the first RTD beverage in Sri Lanka to offer consumers a more sustainable alternative to plastic straws. The landmark move will enable the company to eliminate 90 million plastic straws a year and makes the all-new Milo packaging 100% recyclable.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
And now in economic news, the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa recently met with Omani investors from Shumok Investment and Services, which is the investment arm of Madain, the public establishment for industrial estates of the Sultanate of Oman at the Temple Trees. The Prime Minister and the Omani delegation discussed ways and means to enhance economic cooperation between Sri Lanka and Oman, including investment opportunities in particular. The Sri Lankan Embassy in Oman, jointly with the Embassy of Oman in Sri Lanka, organised the above visit of the Omani investors under the investment bubble concept.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue in partnership with the Ministry of Education introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
The Met Department forecasts several spells of showers to occur in the western, Sabaragamu and northwestern provinces and in the Galla, Matara, Kandy and Nuwara Eliya districts. The Met Department further predicts showers or thundershowers to occur at a few places in the Uva province and in the Ampara, Batikalo and Mullaitivu districts in the evening or night.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And now the headlines of this news broadcast once again. The Mayor of Colombo confirms the receipt of 10,000 doses of Covishield vaccines to be administered to the residents of the Colombo municipality limits. The National Transport Medical Institute is set to commence its services. The number of buses and train journeys increased within provinces from today. The Department of Prisons says inmates who engaged in protest damaging prison property will not be recommended for clemency. In international news, Australia, Sydney and Darwin begin COVID-19 lockdowns. In sports cricket, Indian skipper Mithali Raj epitomizes India's troubles with a painstaking run rate in the first ODI in Bristol. That concludes this news broadcast.